Hello and welcome to Bendy, a podcast about being flexible in all of the ways that means. Thanks for joining us. My name is Andy Young and I'm one of your grappling, clashing hosts. Joining me as always is our other grappling and clashing host, Beth Martin. Beth, a pleasure as always. What's the crack?
The crack. I have a burp stuck in my throat real quick.
Oh, do it. Let's get it out.
No. So, say the words again that you just read. Grappling?
Grappling.
I like it. And
clashing.
Clashing.
Because
we're titans.
Very much so. And they're very much the subjects we're talking about today are titans all.
It's true.
Excellent examples of humanity to a man.
So what's the crack? I had a friend. Okay, these are like random things, but I had a friend from San Francisco come and stay, and she said something to me that hit me so hard in the right spot of like, oh, this is a phrase I'm going to start using all the time. She said, "I've done nothing and I'm all out of ideas."
I love it. It's perfect.
So I'm like applying this to my life in like all ways.
I was going to say, can relate.
I know. It's like the perfect phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I saw it kind of reminds me of, I saw there's like a meme and it's a car like driving along, but like and it sees a turning and it just kind of is trying to skid onto the turning. And it's like, it's often two examples, which is like, the thing that I should be doing, the thing that I want to be doing. And oftentimes, say the car's gone off into the worst kind of choice, or the more sort of like irrational choice. But the one that I saw was the thing that I want to do. The other one was the thing that I need to do. And the car, instead of going in either direction, was just crashing into the middle.
Right.
I was like, yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
It's hot here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty hot here too.
It's
hot for our girls.
So I'm gonna look in my mind garden for Fahrenheit versus Celsius. First I have to figure out how to spell Fahrenheit, but it's like 91. It was 100 the other day.
Yikes!
And it went from like 80 to dying within a day. So it's just hot. My mind garden isn't working. So
it's 91's about 32, which is very hot. It would maybe get to 30 on a very, very rare occasion here. But like we were having like my friend in New Jersey was like making fun of us. Yes, I was gonna say me, but us, everybody in the UK was making fun of all of you if you're listening. And it was like a article he saw, and it was like, Britain is bracing itself for a 26-degree heat wave, and that's 26 degrees, like 78, which I know is like nothing for you. It's just an average hot day.
That's like winter.
Yeah. So that's our heat wave. We have to brace ourselves. That's kind of very... but like, it has been... I don't know what temperature it has been today, but it has been quite muggy here. Kind of a bit oppressively hot.
Do you guys have mosquitoes?
We didn't for a long time, but we have started getting them in recent years, yeah.
Okay. They came over on some boat?
Yeah. There's only one country in the world that doesn't have them, and I think it's Iceland, Have
we talked about this before?
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah.
Damn it, we need an answer.
All right. I'm near certain it's Iceland. I'm near positive. It's, as I say, it's, I haven't been out much. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So it has been quite sunny over the past few days. And I've just been enjoying it from the comfort of my sofa, looking at it through the window.
Let's pass the torch to you, my friend. What's going on? What's the crack?
Okay, so
why can't you leave your house right now?
Why can't you leave your house? So the police arrived at my door. No.
You're Ant-Man.
Yeah, house arrest. Yeah, I do. I've got like an ankle bracelet to keep me from leaving. Yeah, exactly. Learned how to drum. I did. I've been talking about it on the podcast already. I did my hike on Saturday. It's just passed. So it was I'll just give you details because I don't know if I've talked about it at length before, but it was a marathon distance hike, which is 26.4 miles. There was around 2,500.
Who decided Who decided that?
I don't know. It's some sort of it's got its origins in Greek. So it like it's I think whenever the measurements were different, is
So
when
that's
it
just
was.
what it. Now that we
Yeah,
use
it's
miles.
like it's an ancient sort of test, I think, of stamina or whatever, and it was say it's about 2,500 feet of elevation along the way. There was walking along rocky shore fronts, narrow paths. There was 2 miles on a beach, which was
Ugh.
we thought would be nice, but was actually brutal and really kind of sapped our energy in a fairly major way. And that came about 3/4 of the way through the hike. So I'd say, and I walk a lot. I'd say for the first half of the walk was fine. Definitely feeling a bit sore after that, but it was still completely manageable. The third quarter was also not bad, tough but not bad. But the last quarter was completely brutal, and like I was really worried that I would even be able to finish it.
Did they have
Um,
like safety checks where you could get like a ride?
there were stops along the way. There were pit stops along the way
Okay.
where you could, if you wanted to just stop, and they would give you supplies. There was medical tents there and things like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Good.
So they were. I've got to say it was very well organized, and like there was like refreshments at the start. There was like fruit at the pit stops. There was also things like bags of nuts and things like that for energy. Like I had made like buns, and I packed like a not a super heavy bag, but a heavier bag than I probably should have taken because I wasn't sure what they would have, but they were very well supplied. Um, and I told Beth there was like 2 Skittles stops, and they were very. I like basically like a tiny like fun size bag of Skittles, and I just like shotgunned them, and
And then
it
chewed
really
for an hour.
yes, it was great. It was such a great energy boost. But it was great. I did it with a friend of mine. It was lovely just like spend the day together, even though like at the end we were just kind of like trying to like
Uh,
motivate each other.
yeah.
He fortunately brought some painkillers, which kind of like kept us going for the last 2 or 3 miles. Were essential, I think, in keeping us going for the last 2 or 3 miles. But yeah, it was. It was really great, and it's one of these things that you kind of do, and I've had people congratulating me and stuff like that, and it just feels kind of surreal that I did it, and it's happened, and I actually managed to complete it. Um, but yeah, it was like it was. I've talked about it being sunny over the past few days. So the reason why I haven't been leaving the house is because like my legs have been in a significant amount of pain. So I have and I've been walking, and I've been taking my dog out for a walk. Sasha, so I should say her name. Out for a walk, and I did another dog walk today. So I'm kind of like build myself back up to where I normally am, and I'm feeling better this evening. We record on a Monday. Um, so I'm hoping in the next few days I should be mostly back to normal.
Did I know we've talked about this, but for the or listeners, like, did you train?
um, no, like is the very I mean is the honest and accurate answer to that. Like essentially, I mean, it's a mixture of things, but I was kind of arrogant about it in terms of me thinking I walk quite a bit a day anyway. Like I would
Having
probably
walked, like having just shadowed you, you walk all day.
yeah, I do. And like, but the difference is that I don't walk continuously. Like I sometimes walk maybe about half the distance on a busy day. I would walk maybe half the distance of this walk. But even if I'm doing that, it's broken up. So it's like half an hour here, an hour here, that sort of thing. So it's really not so bad. But whenever you're doing it continuously with, like we took maybe 15-20 minutes for break for lunch, each of the pit stops, and there was only two. We maybe took 10, maybe 15 minutes. So it wasn't like we were getting big breaks. So it's just a lot of continuous walking. So I think were I to do it again, I would start with a couple of big walks and just kind of build up. Like the other problem with that is that I don't really have a lot of time,
Yeah, I
so
know.
it would be a struggle to find the time to do like 20-kilometer walks or whatever really. So yeah, but definitely manageable, and like I think that I I'm glad I'm like in fairly decent shape because of the dog walking, because of yoga and things like that, because I think it would be really, really brutal otherwise.
Yeah. Are you going to do it again, do you think?
I don't
If they
know.
have it? Okay. It's probably
I
too... I'm like, the date, like 2 days after, you're like,
The friend that I did it with
I
was
need
like,
help sitting on the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like, not yet.
Too soon.
Like, I think, honestly, even 2 days distant from it, I think I probably would, but I'd probably try and prepare a bit more for it. Like, I think having done it, now you kind of, learn what you kind of need, and I think I'd be better prepared for it second time around. Like, I think I was well prepared, but like, even in terms of like, I didn't consider painkillers, things like that. You just don't think about those things until, but again, my friend did, fortunately. So yeah, because like, I think the last few miles would have been brutal otherwise, and you saw other people near the end just like limping, and like it was like everybody was coming back from battle.
Yeah,
it was
you're like, nuts. It's not just me.
Yeah.
Good.
So it was good. So it was great. It was a great thing to be part of. I got a medal at the end of it, which I didn't know that I was getting, and it's quite a nice medal. I should show it to you actually. So it's like we went to the causeway when you were here, and because this path took us past the causeway, it's like the causeway is on the medal.
That's
and
awesome.
it's really lovely. Yeah, I was really pleased with that.
I'm telling everyone the story of Finn McCool and the causeway. So
yeah, I love it.
Spreading the lore.
And also, and I should also say this, and I'm going to put this in my socials later on in the week. I managed to raise, we managed to raise, I should say, because of the people that sponsored me, £850, which is insane, really fantastic. So that's what equivalent to about $1,000, which is nuts.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah,
I wonder really how much the whole walk was able to raise.
So like, apparently there was 2,000 people walking, and if each one,
lot.
Yeah. And if each one got the minimum of £250, I think somebody worked it out. It's like at least $1 million immediately. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
Good
so
job.
Yeah, so thank you. So I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that it's over. But yeah, it was good. It was a great thing to do.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes. Look at you.
I know.
You're like, nah. You said thank you.
No, thank you.
Let that compliment. No, thank you.
I did say thank you.
You did.
Go me. Do you have any other crack?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I do, but I don't know if anyone else will find it funny.
Okay.
So, a friend of mine is in Japan right now, and he sent me this like rock star video. Not rock star, it's like a musician. And he's like, do you ever like, you're like walking down a hall and there's like black squares and white squares and you only like step on the black squares?
Yeah.
It's like a whole video of this dude like singing and dancing, and he's only walking on like the street paint.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks silly and it's like funny, and he sent it to another friend of ours. And our friend responded, and this is like a little bit of a like Burning Man insight. He said, "Oh, it's a lot like Burning Man. They call it the playa. That's like the desert that it's on."
Mm-hmm.
He was like, my old messed up playa shuffle. I remember one morning just after sunrise heading back to camp. I was coming down from a lot of things and physically needed rest. My brain was functional, and I remember, but my body wasn't having it." So super fucked up. I couldn't walk 3 steps straight. My body wasn't under my control until I realized that I could fake a limp. Sorry. I could hide my inability to walk by limping. It was genius. I got a lot of genuine sympathy for my fake limp from some early risers in different camps. I'm sure I switched legs of the limp multiple times on the 2-long block walk to my tent.
I love it.
You're going to meet this friend of mine.
Nice. I like
when you
it.
come.
That's great.
So yeah. Yeah.
That's it. It speaks volumes about the community there at the Burning Man as well. Nice.
Yeah. But also just like this particular person. Like last week we were talking about lying, and also like those people in our lives that like tell these stories that are so fantastical that they like, did that really happen? And like some people just have these lives where amazing things happen to them all the time, and
Yeah.
this friend is one of those.
Love
So
it. It reminds me of my ex who lived in Taiwan. Her dog, he was quite old at the time, and he was a smart boy. He would fake a limp, but he would like also do it in both legs, and it was so because he would get sympathy for it, and he would get picked up and things like that, and that's what he was looking for.
it's like I don't want to walk anymore.
Yeah, he's like, this is getting tired of limping in this leg. I'm going to limp in the other leg now. Which is so great. I loved it. I was like, you're so smart. But not smart enough.
I know. So yeah, it's just an example of like humans being human, and I love it.
Yeah.
So
it's great.
It has nothing to do with anything, but I thought it was funny.
It's good. I like it.
Uh-huh. All right.
Do you have any current for this week? Or
check our website, new merch, and we are bendypodcast.com. But it's summer merch. So
yeah, hell yeah. So get your summer fit.
That's right.
Right?
Your summer fit.
All right. Okay, so I think we'll move on to today's topic. So I've been circling this for a while.
Yeah.
I've been telling Beth I've been wanting to do an episode about this for a long time.
He's been texting me about this topic now for like 5 days.
I feel like, yeah, I have. And also I'm like it has also bled into our friendship in ways like, for example, when Beth came to visit me, her bed sheets, which we'll get to as we get through today's episode. So the topic of today's episode is wrestling, and the episode is called Wrasslin. So it's essentially about wrestling, kind of the idea of modern wrestling, and I'm talking about what you think of whenever you think about the WWE and so on. So it's pro wrestling, as they call it. Isn't it quite funny that like pro wrestling is the kind of stage stuff, and like amateur wrestling is the actual sport?
Right.
Pretty awesome.
And I wonder what the crossover is too, like how many amateur wrestlers become, right?
We can talk about that. It does happen. It does happen a little bit. And some of them tie that into their gimmick then as well, which is quite cool.
Okay. We'll get there.
We will. So, basically, just to set us up for this, what I'll do is, I'll talk about a little bit about my sort of relationship with it, and like where I am with it these days and things like that. So I always kind of liked the idea. So it was on a satellite network in the UK in the early years, and I was kind of aware of it. I was aware of like Hulk Hogan, I was aware of Undertaker, things like that. But I had no real way to access these shows, so I just kind of had an awareness of it. We had local wrestlers. There was a guy called wrestling in the UK is a whole other thing, but like they tend to be like these big, fat, tall guys. So like the two that I knew of were like Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks, and they were
Haystacks?
Like, yeah. There's an amazing video that I must send that you can link of Giant Haystacks, like basically slamming a local kind of celebrity, a local like news presenter who was telling him that it was fake. It's very funny. But like it didn't have a lot of appeal for me. I was really interested in the American stuff. So eventually then I kind of went through high school without really encountering it that much. And then some of the friends I made in university, some of my good friends that I made there were really into it, and we would like watch pay-per-views together, and it really got me connected into it. I was really watching it a lot. I would have watched the two sort of major WWE shows at the time, Raw and SmackDown, every week. I would have watched a lot of the pay-per-views. And like this went on for me for like 3 or 4 years. Then whenever I went to North Carolina, one of the friends I made there, an Australian guy, he was really into his wrestling too. We like traveled about a bit. We like went to see some different shows and stuff. We saw a show on campus. So and then like as my life went on, I kind of like, it's such a big investment if you're really into it, because like the shows are like 2 or 3 hours long, so it's like 6-hour block a week. And then if you're watching the pay-per-views, which happen every month, that's an additional like 4 hours every month. And I just kind of, as my interests kind of diversified a bit more, I just kind of gradually kind of faded away from it, but I always love it, and I think most of my connection to it now is in watching like live events. And I think for me, what I love about it is the social aspect of it. Like I don't really have the patience to watch it at home by myself anymore, but I can watch it with friends where we can just like have a bit of fun with it. So yeah, so that's a very kind of light. I'm gonna dig into it a bit more as we go on, but kind of light overview of my relationship with wrestling. What about you?
So I would say similar to you, and I think that's why we connect on this so much. I We didn't really have cable until until we moved to Oregon, so I was probably like 9 or 10, and then it was like, there were action figures of like Hulk Hogan and Undertaker and all, like that era, and I remember like Hulk Hogan being on, like Hulk Hogan is like, when you think of like that era,
100%.
it's Hulk Hogan.
Totemic, yeah.
Totally. And like, who else could get away with those colors? But
Oh,
right. So it really was college, like, yeah, university, college. I had a couple of friends that were really into it, and I was like, what is this? And so, yeah, twice a week we would get together and get drunk and like watch, wrestling. And it's kind of like, I remember I had a summer where I watched a soap opera when I was a kid, and it's very similar. Like you like, as you're saying, you have to, it's a commitment. You do have to watch every episode because there's a story that's happening, and it's like a soap opera, right? Like there's
storylines.
There's a storyline.
There's
and
feuds.
And like who, and things change quickly, and you've got to know who's who and who's brawling with who's upset with who, and also the McMahon family, who kind of I was hip to it when it was the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, but then the World Wildlife Federation sued them, and so they had to change it to the WWE.
It's even dumber than that, right?
Is it?
It's basically the World Wrestling Federation went after the World Wildlife Fund and lost so badly that they had to remove the name. Yeah,
probably pay all the lawsuit fees. I hope. They could afford it.
They can.
I love that you know that. So
I know.
And then same type. So I like the period that I love is really like late 90s, early 2000s. That was like the golden era for me. But like
too.
I'm still, it's still like, I keep an eye on things. I know who the big wrestlers are, and it's also and like we can get into the wrestlers that the number of wrestlers that actually go into film careers. So it's like, what's great is that like I was watching them as a kid or as a young adult, and now they're still with me like in life. When I watch movies too. So yeah.
It's like I think the first thing, in terms of talking about it, is that I think what a lot of people who aren't fans of it can't get past is that it's fake, right?
I wrote down fake. Let's talk about that.
And to me, it's like, no shit. I mean, but like, so is like, 99% of everything you watch on TV. You know what I mean? I mean, it may be like scripted, because I don't think it really, I think anybody who has even a kind of cursory understanding of wrestling understands that it's scripted, events are planned, winners are planned. But like, what I think, why that rubs people the wrong way is that while, yes, it's fake, while it's or scripted, and organized ahead of time, is that like some of the moves they're doing, you can't fake them. They're still hurting people, like, and like you can't fake jumping through like 4 tables. Like, that's going to hurt. I mean, you can do preparation to kind of learn how to fall in a certain way to minimize damage, but you're still doing damage, you know. And the reality often is that, like, and there's been some really interesting like diaries in the past, like obviously because of how contracts work and because of how litigious some of these like companies can be, wrestlers are reluctant to talk about this stuff. But there's been some really like interesting diaries of wrestlers who injure themselves, but because their storyline isn't finished, need to work for another few months to finish their storyline before they can like take medical leave, which is crazy, you know.
Yeah. So I think of it too, like when you go and see a play, and they like, you know, someone slaps someone else or whatever, they get in a fight and they're like using their fists, and you're not like, that's so fake, right? This is they're putting on a performance.
Yes.
And so it doesn't, it's almost, it does it disservice. They're acting, they're putting on a performance, they're putting on a show, but they're also risking their lives at the same time, right? So it does a complete disservice to say that it's fake. And just because they know who's going to win the belt at the end of the night or whatever, like, doesn't mean that they're not working their asses off.
Yeah.
Half their teeth are fake because they've been knocked out, right?
Yep. They aren't putting their bodies on the line every night.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That like, they do this, you know.
If you don't believe us, like, go watch like Mick Foley in a cage match on YouTube.
Yeah.
And see how far he falls.
Yeah, it's
on the outside of the cage onto the ground.
Yeah, it's not good. And there's like, and there's such a kind of like undercurrent in wrestling of like, it's such a like fucked up sort of scene in so many ways in terms of like how wrestlers treat each other, the kind of boy clubs mentality, you know, and because of like, you know, obviously it's testosterone driven bullshit in a lot of ways, so that's going
like
to
literally it's steroids, but
literally and that's going to draw in a certain type of person, a certain type of personality, you know what I mean? And like I've heard, like I hear wrestlers talking, I've seen interviews of people talking about, you know, things that have happened in, you know, behind the scenes sort of stuff, and then like they tell a story that's like, that's absolutely abuse, that's terrible, that's happened, and then go, but you know what, he's a great guy. And I'm like, he doesn't sound like a great guy. He sounds like a terrible guy. But they're so like conditioned into thinking that this is normal, this, you know, kind of crazy wrestling world is normal, you know. It's nuts. But like, you know, I mean, to me, you know, putting all that aside, it's like, you know, I'm sure there's lots of actors who aren't great people as well. So I don't think it's too dissimilar in that way. But like, I think, you know, in terms of as a spectator to it, what I love about it more than anything else is like completely engaging in the fiction of it. And like, if you do, you have so much fun. It's why I love live events so much. Like, I
have never been to a live wrestling event, and I'm like so jealous that you've been to so many. Shit,
if we go over, because there's some great. Like,
that's what I'm like literally mind gardening to see if
there's
you
some
come
great
here.
LA wrestling promotions, so we could maybe see if we could get tickets to some of them, because I know there's some good ones.
Not that I'm looking right now.
Yeah, no, not at all. Wink. But like, because I love it more than anything, like, because there's some local, there's a Dublin based wrestling I was forgetting the word, federation, that's not the word I'm looking for, but people know what I'm talking about, that works out of Dublin, that puts on shows up here, and they're really fantastic. And like, it's so we go to those shows every now and again. That's most of my connection to wrestling these days, and they get in big names who are like touring, and like, you know, so because some wrestlers are kind of signed up with various sort of organizations, some that kind of are more free floating and kind of like get pulled in every now and again. And but my favorite thing more than anything to do is, like, you know, in pre-scripted moments, sometimes, you know, they'll be having a fight, and then somebody will come down to the ring and distract the referee, is to be like, ref, what are you doing? Come on, turn around.
He's got a chair.
He's got a chair. What are you doing?
You're not even noticing. Yeah.
Come on, you're not doing your job. And I was there with my friend recently, and his his daughter, he's getting his daughter into it, and she's like 8 years old. And one of the guys came down who was a bad guy, and he was clearly talking a lot of crap to the audience. And she's like, "You're rubbish," and I was like, "Yeah, you're rubbish." And he like heard us and just looked down at us, and it was just like, "Oh, it's just magic. This is like everything I want." So yeah, there's something really special about
it. What's happening here? It's like, UFC is becoming a bigger
here
thing, too. And it's like that's what's happening. Like, you know, there's a big match in Vegas, and like so much of that is performance. And I'm not okay. I'm going there. I'm gonna compare. I'm comparing. I know, but like so much of, not to say they're not literally kicking the shit out of each other with the UFC, but so much of it is performative also. Like all of the, you know, the YouTube videos and the smack talking before the actual fight. It's like they're, you know, they don't hate each other that much. They're probably going out for beers after or whatever, right? Like, so it's like they're very similar.
I think it's got more pronounced, and I mean, you've seen some wrestlers have tried their hand, have tried to go over to UFC. It hasn't worked out, I don't think, for any of them really that well. But like, they've all tried. Like, the only one I think who's had any sort of success is Brock Lesnar, because he is like, literally one of his like nicknames in WWE was the Genetic Freak, because he's like 6'6", and he's like enormous. He's just built like a brick shit house,
and he's still around.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think UFC has definitely kind of eaten into that, but I think, you know, there's still something, because of like how UFC has like morphed and changed over the way, and there's a very kind of uniform way of, like, there's a certain set of skills that kind of fighters need to have these days, so fights have become not samey, but there's like a pattern to them, really, like a kind of a logical way of taking that down. So like, you know, whereas like in wrestling, people could just decide to do like a friggin' you know, double backflip into a splash, you know. It's pretty rad.
So I was thinking through like who are like from like the era that we were really, really into it, like obviously Brock Lesnar, Triple X, The Rock, Mick Foley, Hulk Hogan, Booker T, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Who else? Like Stephanie McMahon.
Yeah. So
right? I remember her first wrestling match.
Oh really? Yeah, I kind of remember that. I was that's
like,
what it been.
And they were like,
watching
and my daughter, and I'm like, that's when Nepo Babies was like
it's true.
Really, yeah.
But Shane, his son Shane, really kind of to fight that out, put himself through some brutal friggin' punishment, like, which was kind of nuts. And we always kind of got a lot of respect for Shane, because like he gets thrown off like the Titantron through tables. The Titantron is essentially the massive screen that they show wrestlers' entrance videos on, so he has taken some big hits. And like, as fucked up as that is what it takes for wrestling fans to respect you. How badly will you damage yourself for our entertainment? That's how much we're gonna respect you for that.
Right.
So like, so from back then, I was a big Hardy Boys fan, you know.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So like, my friends still tease me about being a Matt Hardy mega fan. One of my friends for my 40th birthday made me a Matt Hardy body pillow, which is essentially a Matt Hardy t-shirt stuffed.
Why did you not show this to me?
Because I showed Beth a number of kind of insane things, and it was probably only a fraction of the insane things that I have in my house, including a giant kind of picture of my head with me surrounded by other heads.
That's art. That's modern art or something.
Modern art. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's so. I was always a big fan of him. So Another person from that era, and something that kind of ties into what you were talking about earlier, is Kurt Angle, who was an actual Olympic wrestler, and they kind of used that as his gimmick because he came out with his
with all of his medals
on. Yeah, he had like 5 medals, and like he would like use that to talk trash to everybody how he was so much better than everybody else. He was such a good. His character was fantastic, like, and he was such a good in-ring presence. Like, he was so talented, obviously, but like then there has definitely been a bit of other crossover. Like, I'm trying to...
I forgot that he was an actual Olympic athlete.
He genuinely was.
I remember the gimmick. I totally forgot about him.
Yeah, he was great.
And but he would walk out and it was like, oh, he's got his medals on, and he's got his like USA outfit, everything.
Yeah, he's amazing.
So good, so easy to hate.
So he was perfect. Like, so they I watched for my birthday there. I think I talked about watching some wrestling on a recent episode, and I really wanted to watch some Hardy Boys, like a hardcore match against the Dudley Boys. And the pay-per-view we ended up watching starts with a Kurt Angle. So Kurt Angle had been in the WWE for like a year, 2 years, was undefeated, like he hadn't lost a match. And they were launching this new guy, a guy called Taz, and Kurt Angle comes out and goes, I don't know who my opponent is tonight, but I want you all to give them a good winning, cheer, and give them, I'm sure they'll do a great job, and I'll give them a fair fight and all this sort of stuff. And like Taz just comes out and fucking destroys him and wins the match, and it was such a shock, and it was such a great way to introduce this new kind of presence. Like, as it turned out, that guy lasted maybe 6 months before getting an injury that I think sidelined his wrestling career for the rest of his life, which is all too often the way, unfortunately, with wrestling. But it was such an incredible debut, like, it really was. But yeah, I think we talked about putting lives on their line. That hardcore match that I watched after that with the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys, like how the winner of that match was decided was when both members of a tag team went through a table. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. And this was whenever they were taking actual chair shots. They then started getting softer chairs, I guess, but it was just one of the Dudley Boys came out after that, many kind of years later, in an interview about that match, said that he got a concussion about 5 minutes in and still had to keep wrestling, and he remembers nothing about that happening. And it's like, wow, that's not good. No. It's not good.
I wonder how many end up with because with American football,
CTEs,
CTE, yeah,
so just I suppose to
or missing spleens or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
It's not the one I'll not stay on this one too long, but Chris Benoit is such a good example of that. Yeah. Of they think that probably he'd been impacted by something like that, and his story is so tragic.
China too.
China too, yeah. So it's just, I don't know. And I think that's the big problem with calling it fake, is because it kind of lessens Don't get me wrong, it's fucked up that these guys do this and go through this, but they do, so to then call that fake is kind of a bit insulting to their craft, I guess.
Well, also, it's there is with American football and CTE and how that and I'm not trying to sidetrack us, but there is now an entire way of taking care of these athletes based on the fact that we're trying to avoid CTE, and it's if we continue to call WWE fake, then they're not going to get the care that they need, essentially, right? Because, well, you're this hobby or whatever.
Walk it off, yeah.
Yeah, it's it doesn't do. It's not going to. Not only does it just doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah, that's
it's so scary. Real. So, can you just tell me what it's like to be at a real live match?
Yeah, I mean, it differs wildly. I'm going to talk a little bit about a few different experiences I've had. Okay. So, I guess, I have been to some really big events, and I've been to some big events in London and things like that, some big WWE events, and they are on a different scale altogether. I was in was in New York maybe about 5-6 years ago, and went to Madison Square Garden for a big event. That was also incredible. Yeah. I know that was a Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is a really kind of big name, and a New Japan Wrestling, so it was like some really big sort of indie wrestlers were there. It was really incredible. So like I have also been, so whenever I was in University of North Carolina for 6 months, me and a friend traveled around a bit, and we saw some like indie wrestling events, and they were kind of wild, like, because there's almost like more of an urge to prove themselves in those shows a lot of the time, and I still see that like in the Belfast shows I go to. Like, there's only 200 people there, but that doesn't stop them from doing crazy shit, like big moves, like big impactful moves. It's just they know so many of them. It's like go hard or not at all, but like the ECW event I went to is probably my most memorable one, just in terms of like the pure theater of it, the kind of like the athleticism, the kind of like as I say, indie wrestlers in particular really go hard, and I still remember how like strong those matches were, and how like you heard the slaps and you were just like yikes, but the one I remember most clearly was there was a character in ECW called New Jack, and he actually had he had a tattoo with like a gun and like bullets on the wherever, like, or bullets at the side of it, and each of those bullets represented somebody he had killed, either as a bounty hunter or something. Like, he had some sort of reason why he had done this, and he was a scary dude. But his ring entrance was he would walk in with like a shopping cart with all these weapons inside of it, but like people were in the ring were just like it took him so long to walk in, and like people in the ring just standing petrified, and they had to like act petrified for like 5 minutes, where this guy slowly walked this cart in, threw all his weapons in, and then came in and just destroyed them. It was just, I don't know, the theater of that was really, really funny. My other one, and like one of my favorites, is, so I have a friend who's a wrestler, and I've been to see her wrestle a few times, and I went to see her wrestle in London just before the pandemic, actually. So wrestlers have like a character. There's a thing called kayfabe, which is like you're keeping the character up. So like you don't want to like break kayfabe if at all possible whenever like there's fans and stuff around. So like I know her as a friend, and I went up to her as in her wrestling character, and she did not break character, and I fucking loved it. It made me so happy. She's like, "Who are you? What are you?" And it was just like we just had this wee exchange, and it was just like it thrilled me so much. So yeah, I don't, as I say, it's just it is truly unique in terms of, and that's why I will never walk away from it entirely, because there is nothing else like it in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And the energy of like especially if you've got a great crowd who's engaged, who gets it, or who's at least willing to go along with it, it's like nothing else on earth.
Agreed. Yeah, I remember, I mean, there's also like, kind of like you were saying, there are like certain people that watch it and certain people that don't, or whatever, and like I just don't subscribe to that, I love the theater of it. Yes. I love the reality of it. I love everything about it. It's kind of like when you were describing in another episode of the pod, like why you read graphic novels, and like how much like they're just complete. It's like its own art form, and it's the same with this. It's like it's its own thing. That
it is. I also love like, so like in the wrestling parlance, there's like good guys and bad guys. Good guys are called baby faces, bad guys are called heels. And I kind of love how people get heel energy over, and like also baby face energy, but heel, like a good heel is spectacular. And a favourite memory of a recent sort of Belfast show was a guy came out, and his whole thing was that like he was English and he was better than all of us, and he was of a higher class than all of us, and he was letting us know. And he was like, Yeah. So when he and it did an amazing one, and it made me so happy. So he was like, I heard recently that Belfast is the biggest sort of housing benefit, biggest percentage of like housing benefit claimees. So that's people who are like too poor to afford houses, and
Yep.
And so they're the biggest amount of housing benefit claimees, and the crowd started chanting "We're number one" in response, and it was like, yes.
That is the difference between your brand of humor and the fact that we don't have a sense of humor as a country. Like, that's hilarious, and we'd be boo.
Yeah. No, it was it made me so
funny.
We're number one. Made me so happy. Oh, that's so good.
All right, did you know that Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle is the only WrestleMania event with people using their real names?
Interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me, honestly, when I think about a lot of wrestlers. Like, it's very, very few use their actual names. That's funny.
Yeah, the only two.
Because you have other wrestling facts. I think I've got most of my stuff, and then we can. But yes, what other ones you got for me?
Okay, I have one that's. Okay. Snooki is undefeated at WrestleMania 1-0.
Right. Amazing. Good for Snooki.
I know, right? I love that she's still here, and her.
Yep.
So John Cena only lost cleanly 3 times in 2007. One being to Kevin Federline.
Oh no! Not the K-Fed.
The K-Fed. Mick Foley has never won the hardcore title. He was given the first hardcore title by Vince. But no, I never actually won.
So my friend gave me a gift, and it was an ironic gift for my birthday of a wrestling figure, and it was Gronk, Gronkowski, the football player. Because he wrestled briefly, and I'm like, thanks so much, dude.
Did he still really? I missed that.
Did. It was, I think, it arrived. I got it after you left, so yeah, you didn't see it. It's
okay, that's hilarious.
But I thought that was very funny. Like, I think. I've got something, or we've something we talked about that we're going to use to kind of end off the episode. But before we completely move on, I just want to address the fact that there are big problems with wrestling in a lot of ways too. And it really leans into a lot of like broad stereotypes. I mean, you think about like the 90s, a lot of like there was a black character who it had like a witch doctor gimmick, and that then changed to him being a pimp, right? And his pimp was he was Papa Shango, I believe, and then became the Godfather, both of which deeply problematic. You have somebody who is from the Middle East, and he was the Iron Sheik, what I mean, and it really leans into these things in damaging ways. And even today, like, we have people from Northern Ireland who are Kings of the North, and I think I've either sent you videos of this or I've told you about it, but they have, so on the Ulster flag it's the red hand, so they wear like these red gloves, and they like hold their hands up almost like a Nazi salute with these red gloves on, and it's like, dudes,
oh my gosh,
the vocals in this are the visuals in this are not good. So so there's definitely major problems with this, all of it, but I think very sadly there are problems with also a lot of forms of entertainment, like behind the scenes stuff, but I think it would be remiss not to kind of mention that,
Agreed. And also the McMahon family in general is always
they're monsters.
They're always in trouble. Vince is I think he's no longer associated with.
He's not. He's been removed recently, but he's trying to get back. He was removed, came back, and then was removed again
because of sexual assault claims.
Yep.
So that there isn't, as with, it seems especially things that have to do with like money and power.
Yeah.
And this is a big business. Yeah, right?
Weird that the psychopaths tend to gravitate towards those things.
It's true. So,
or sociopaths or whatever.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so
Thank you for bringing that up. Can I just also say that I drove by, I was driving around town the other day, and I passed a marquee that actually says midget wrestling.
I believe it. I can't believe that that's still happening in some ways, but I knew that it was a thing. But that's kind of grim. So I mean, like, I think about like that, Wolf of Wall Street, whenever he had the midgets and they were like launching them at
the human Velcro.
Yes. It's fuck yeah. We think as a species we have grown, but in actuality, we're not that much different.
Right.
So, I said to Beth at the start of this, it's an idea of a friend of mine that what we should do is come up with wrestling characters of our own. Also, maybe think about some tag team ideas if we were to be in a tag team. This, to be clear, is something that has been a running thing in my head for 20, 25 years. Easy.
You're like, I've already got mine.
Yeah. Like, honestly, I went through so many versions of this in the past 20 years. This is just my current one that I'm working with. This is
like
with.
As of right now, today.
Yeah. This one, and you'll understand why. This one is only like fairly new within the past 4 or 5 years, for a very obvious reason once I start talking about it.
Okay.
Do you want me to do my solo first?
Yes.
Do your solo, and then we'll talk about our tag team ideas?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So my current solo character idea is, I'm using my own name, right? So if I get to WrestleMania, that might be a new record maker, is the Enlightened one, Andy Young. I think it flows quite well, right?
The Enlightened one, Andy Young.
Yeah. It's got that, like, it's almost got like a rhythmic sort of saying. So my entrance music is called Nama Kirtan. It's a 9-minute long yogic chant. When that was playing, I would force the audience to listen to all of that before I come out. I would come out in like the last 30 seconds or something like that.
And they'd be like, everyone's looking terrified for 9 minutes.
Yeah, they're terrified, but also really pissed off that they've had to wait this long. So that character is a heel because like how I see it is that I would come in and I'd be like, guys, why are we fighting? No, let's just like spend some time being one with ourselves. And like in the wrestling world, that would be such a sin, being
You'd
like
be like full Lotus.
Anti-violence. Yeah, exactly, right. Until like
hold on, must meditate.
Yeah, so I'm like standing in the middle of the ring calling for silence, and then and then somebody comes in behind me and like just suplexes me and gets like a big cheer or whatever. Like any sort of quality heel, I would preach one message, but I would be very different. Like, I would be the sort of guy that as soon as somebody's back was turned, I would like slam them into the ground or whatever. Mm-hmm. With that in mind, my finishing move is called the Palm of Wisdom, which is basically a talk to the hand.
Oh my god! From
Have I lifted that?
No, I think you might have from Kung Fu Hustle.
Kung Fu Hustle, yes, I think you're right.
Do you remember?
Damn. Yes, I do. Yes, it is, because that's one of the techniques he uses. Yeah. Nuts.
Is it? I don't know if it's called Palm of Wisdom, but it's something like that. Like
it is something like that. Yeah, from the book, and the booklet that he has.
And yeah, I like it.
So mine is, it's essentially like a talk to the hand. Whenever somebody's like, telling me that my ideas are not good, and then I would just like put my hand on their face
grab
and
their
push them into the ground. Yeah.
I like it.
So that's my solo character.
Okay.
What do you got?
So I've been obsessed with I think maybe it's because of summer solstice, but the Greek myth about Persephone and like Hades and this concept. Ooh, I'm going deep, sorry, but this concept of the path traveled between the underworld and the above world, right? And I found out that and I can't remember what the name for going down into the underworld, but coming out of the underworld, like, because Persephone would have to do this every 6 months.
Yeah.
And that's why we have seasons. So coming out of the underworld, it's called Anabasis. Mm-hmm. So that's my name, is Anabasis.
Nice.
And then because it's like my favorite song ever, I would walk out to my entrance music is the Terminator 2 theme song.
Amazing.
Like I want like
so
metal, like yeah, and then I'm like coming out of the underworld, right?
Yeah,
and, like,
I love it. Like
bringing
it's like dark visuals in your video and things like that. Yeah.
So it's like I'm kind of evil, but also like covered in flowers or something.
Okay.
I don't know. And then my finishing move, I actually stole this from Tekken 3.
I love it.
So it's the rolling death cradle. So I would basically like flip somebody around and then just like roll them and roll them and roll them until they would get like dizzy and barf.
Amazing.
Back down to the underworld.
Oh, it's a king move. I remember.
Yeah, it's totally it's king.
Yeah.
So good job pulling that out of your mind garden. So that's as of right now, this moment, that's what I would be. I would not use my real name.
No. I was trying to like I kind of like this whole sort of yogic aspect. I don't see any wrestlers doing that, so like I was just kind of excited with that whenever I was thinking about mine.
Right.
Sorry. Before that's what I was getting. So you're talking about Hades, Persephone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because my sort of recent years connection with that is there was a video game come out called Hades. Surprise, surprise! It's a video game, and it was about because it was about Zagreus. You played the character Zagreus, who was like trying to fight through to meet his father in order to meet Persephone, because I think they were his parents. So that has taught me a lot about those sort of myths and underworld and whatnot, and the kind of layers.
It's super cool. It's also like, because I was researching this, I was like, what is it called? Like when you're coming in and out, there's got to be like a name of the path, right? And there actually is, and I didn't know that. I found that out this morning.
That's a good one.
That's not true. 4 days ago when I was doing this research. Sure. But this concept of like underworld and passage to the underworld and like paying someone, I think it's like not Chiron. Is it Chiron?
Yeah, Chiron.
Chiron in Greek.
The coins to take you the ferry across. Yep.
To River Styx, but that's like, it's in this concept is it goes all across different times and areas, and it's a common myth, I'll say.
It's cool. It is, and it's a lot of interesting. There's a lot of interesting sort of characters in there. I mean, the Greek gods in particular, kind of. Yeah. Is it Greek gods? They're like a interesting bunch. They're horny.
They really are. They're
horny AF.
Yeah,
they are.
Yeah. And they're like, everyone's a half god, half human. Yeah.
Because they're putting their dick in everything.
Yep. Basically Zeus, man.
Yeah. Can't help himself. That guy. Okay. So the tag
What's your idea?
The tag team that I've cooked up for us is Los Vatas Locos. Our entrance music, and this is a lift, but I really like it so much. My friend suggested this for me if I was never in a tag team, and I really want to use it, is the song Why Can't We Be Friends?
Why can't we
be friends? Right, because it's just such a funny thing to come down to a wrestling match too. Our finisher would be the hug. So like we would like be like, oh come on guys, can't we just have a hug? And then we would give somebody a hug, and you would give them a hug from the front, and I would give them a hug from the back, and then I would give you a wink, and you would release, and then I would German suplex them.
That's good.
Right?
That's good.
Okay.
So mine was, I went with like the theme of two. So I picked our ring name would be Sweet and Sour. And I'll let people decide which would be which.
Yeah.
I know which would be which. Our music would be Iron Maiden's 2 Minutes to Midnight. And then our finishing move would be the double flying elbow drop. A la Randy Savage. Yeah.
So like coming from like opposite
both
ends.
sides. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, I like that.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we just need to essentially we need to like contact a wrestling federation and see who will sign us. Basically, that's all there is to do now.
I think we're ready. I mean, I'm
perfect.
You did your 26.2 miles walking, and
we did.
I definitely walked the dog this morning, so I'm ready for a full board.
getting into a wrestling career, starting our wrestling career in our 40s.
In our 40s.
Is the best time to do it, right? Love it. So that's good. Yeah, I mean, like, I thought that was fun. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I'm trying to see if there's any more.
Oh yeah, well, one thing I didn't mention before we move on completely is that, so I teased it up top, was whenever Beth came over to visit me.
Oh right.
I didn't have many single bed covers. My mum goes, "Oh, I've got one," and she showed me a Stone Cold Steve Austin bed cover, and I was like, "Perfect."
So I walked into the room, and like there's a twin bed, and it's got Stone Cold Steve Austin's face and like beer cans. It's like Stone Cold, and then the pillowcase just says "Hell yeah, hell yeah" all over it. And you're like, you can tell Mike this is the man you're sleeping with tonight.
Oh, that's so good. And then Mike had the perfect response, was, "I think I saw that guy in Remoted today."
Yes.
So good.
Which is pretty accurate.
But like, you know what's funny is that, like, I looked at that whenever I was putting it on, and I realized that my mom had bought that because it was trademarked 2001. I was 22 years old.
You were.
My mom bought that for me.
Yeah, I looked at it and I was like, "When did you get this?" And you were like, "I think college."
Yeah. And I mean, like, obviously I was embarrassed, but also it was like, yeah, of course I want it, but like,
yeah,
you didn't see it.
Yeah, and she kept it.
She did keep it. Yeah, she's very funny. So yeah, but yeah. So I think we move on to wrapping things up. That was a nice chat.
It was great. I'm glad we did this.
Me too. So what's been bringing you joy this week, Beth?
Dave Grohl.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm reading his book. Did I tell you this already? I'm reading a paper book that's paper that I hold.
Yeah, you did, and we were horrified, and I was
Did I already
mortified.
talk about this?
No, I don't know if you talked about it in length, but you talked about you were reading that, yeah.
Okay, so I'm really, if I've already talked about it, I'm not going to talk about it again. Did I talk about it last week?
I think you may have, or a couple of episodes ago,
right,
possibly. But you may be further on now, so you may.
I am. I'm probably almost done with it. He's really a good storyteller.
Yeah.
Hence the name of the book, Storyteller. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's patting yourself on the back.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat, because that's how I approach things, apparently. But it's really good. His stories are good. You know, just like talking about what it's like to live in a Dodge van with like 5 other dudes with all your gear. And they did like he was in a band in the early days. He lied. This is how we got his start. He lied and was like, I think he said he was 19. He was 17. He was still in high school. Mm-hmm. And this band needed a drummer, and they were already established, and he was already a fan. And they were like, well, what songs can you play? And he was like, all of them. And they did. They sat down and they played them all. And they were like, well, you're our guy. And so he was actually like, Mom, like, I think I want to drop out of high school. And she was just like, you know, basically like,
okay,
don't be too messy out there, you know, just like, and what I love, I think the most is the relationship he has with his mother and how supportive she's been of him, like through all, because he's, you know, it's like, he's been through a lot, he's done a lot. And like the entire way she's just been like, yep, okay, you know, showing up at his shows and, you know, reprimanding him once he's like a parent and and his kid gets hurt or, you know, does something bad. And she's like, now you understand how hard it is. It's just like the sweetest thing. So
he seems like a good dude. And I think, you know, probably he had good upbringing in that way. So I suppose that doesn't surprise me, you know, and I think, you know, that feels like good parenting, and that I think I've done a good job of raising you. I trust you if this is what you think's the right thing to do, you know.
But
so
like,
I think that's nice.
Also, like, what parent of a 17-year-old would be like, sure, go on a 3-month tour and like just go live your life and like this is your dream, try it, you know? And not like you need to go to college or whatever, or like go to trade school. It's just like that. I don't know.
it's pretty unusual, but also rad, I think.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could easily have gone wrong
it
too,
could,
but
then
yeah.
I wonder if more parents said yes, like what would exist in the world.
Well, this is so true.
Yeah.
I know.
So
more joy and light. It's like the Great Simpsons joke where Lionel Hutz, the lawyer, somebody asks him, can you imagine a world without lawyers? And it's just all these people of different races and creeds, like holding hands and like singing songs. and it cuts back to him and he's like, what a nightmare.
What about you? What's bringing you joy?
So I just, to do with my hike again, my friend that I did it with, I don't really get to see him too often these days because I'm so bloody busy all the time. So it was lovely, despite the pain, to just, hang out with him for a day, just chat for a day, and just like not have to worry about the outside world for like a day. So it was just lovely in that regard. So it was a nice, I certainly don't think I could have done it without him, honestly. So I am very grateful to have just been able to spend the day with him. So it was nice.
You have good friends, I will say.
Yeah, I do. I do.
That's great.
So yeah, that was really bringing me joy this week. So yeah. Can you do...
Yes.
Where people can find us, please?
And so, yes, please check us out at bendypodcast.com. We're also on all of the different social platforms. We do video short, so all of the little funny things that, so you can check us out on YouTube. And we also have, we've videotaped this. You can actually watch us.
Yep.
Drinking water.
Yeah, lots of
water. Check out Andy's t-shirts that he wears every week.
Yeah. It is water and not just a pint glass
straight,
of room
straight alcohol, right?
Vodka, yeah. I promise.
So bendypodcast.com or And thank you. I do also want to thank folks for we're getting reviews on random platforms that I didn't even realize. I Googled us the other day and went and looked, and thank you for all the nice reviews and the 5 stars. We appreciate it. So
we really do. Thank you, folks. Okay. So in that case, folks, we would like to remind you, as always, to stay Bendy. Killer.
Palm of wisdom.
Yeah, palm of wisdom. Rolling. Okay. That was a rolling death cradle.
Right.
Stay Bendy. All right, folks.
All right. Love you guys.
We
Bye.
love you. Bye.